Good morning, grade 10s. I'd like to start this morning immediately with poem 2, and I'm going to read it to you. Please follow carefully. Those winter Sundays. Sundays too, my father got up early and put his clothes on in the blue-black cold. Then, with cracked hands that ached from labour in the weekday weather, made banked fires blaze. No one ever thanked him. I'd wake and hear the cold splintering, breaking. When the rooms were warm, he'd call, and slowly I would rise and dress, fearing the chronic angers of that house, speaking indifferently to him, who had driven out the cold and polished my good shoes as well. What did I know? What did I know of love's austere and lonely offices? All right, so we are going to come back and look at the type of poem. But before we do that, let's quickly just cover the poet. The poem was written by a poet called Robert Hayden, Roberthaydен, an American poet, born in 1913 and passed away in 1980. This poem, Those Winter Sundays, is probably Robert Hayden's most famous poem, and we know that he writes in this poem about his difficult childhood, how he was often sent between his own home into foster care, often to the neighbours next door, and we know that the circumstances in his home were not always ideal. Having said that to you, I now want to speak to you about the type of poem. Now, if you counted your lines like I asked you to and numbered them, you will have noticed that there are 14 lines. And then, as from today, I need you to always remember that as soon as you see a poem that has 14 lines, we will know that it is called a sonnet. S-O-N-N-E-T. A sonnet. A sonnet is a poem that has 14 lines. But now, grade 10s, I spoke to you in the previous 2 videos about a type of poem, and I spoke to you about figures of speech. Today I'd like to bring a new concept to you, and that is the word structure of the poem. Now let's look at this word structure. S-T-R-U-C-T-U-R-E. And the easiest way for me to explain this word structure to you is, if I asked you to explain, this is getting on my nerves now, all right, if I asked you to explain to me how Juffrou Antonel's class was built, you would tell me it was built out of asbestos. If I asked you to give me the materials used in my classroom, you would say, well, it's a brick building, Mrs. Herron. If I asked you to explain to me the difference between the way the new building in the school, the nuwe geboue, what do they look like? You're going to tell me, well, it's a square building. It has 2 stories, ground floor and first floor. And if you compared it to the main building has 3 floors. It's ground floor, first floor, second floor. And it's definitely not a square building. It's more a rectangular building. You would tell me maybe something about the staircases. The new building has the staircases on the outside, and the main building has staircases, 3 different staircases in the middle of the building. What I'm doing here now, grade 10s, is I'm explaining the structure of a building to you. How it was designed, what it is built from, what it looks like, and that is the structure. And in exactly the same way, and now we'll use my little flashcard, the structure of a poem, and in this case of Robert Hayden's Those Winter Sundays, we know that the structure of this poem is a 14-line sonnet. Now, if you want to compare and you want to go back to poem 1, you will notice that that structure is totally different. It has 22 lines, okay? Also very important to remember is when you're discussing your structure, look at your stanzas, so number them with a big circle in the middle like that, that you can tell me the structure of this poem is a 14-line poem, which makes it a sonnet with 3 stanzas, whereas the close was a 22-line poem, and it had 1, 2, 3, 4 stanzas. So that's the very basic of the structure. Then the other thing you look at when you're talking about the structure of a poem is you need to look at the lines and the length. Some poems have lines that are exactly the same length. Some poems have lines that have only got like one word in the line. So we see in poem 1, the structure here would be 22 lines in different length, whereas the poem 2, Those Winter Sundays, the sonnet, has 14 lines of similar length. Also under structure, and now you need to look at your figures of speech. I'm getting so confused here. Okay, turn to figures of speech, but more importantly, turn to sound devices. And there you'll see 3 sound devices, those last 3, that go with the structure of the poem. The first one is rhyme, words that have a similar sound. Nice, rice, cat, mat, sat. Okay, that would be the rhyme. Then rhyme scheme, and this is the one that you all love doing. It's the little one that if the last word in the line is cat, you give it an A. If the last word in line 2 is sat, it'll also have an A. But if the last word in line 3 is dog, because it doesn't rhyme with cat and sat, it will have a B. So you know that rhyme scheme you've been doing since you were little, A, B, B, C, A, B, B, D, whatever. That is your rhyme scheme. And then you have the rhythm. And the rhythm is the beat of the lines. In any line of poetry, certain syllables will be stressed or emphasized. Regular beats, and you can read the rest of that there, but I don't want you to concentrate that much today on rhythm. I want you to look at rhyme scheme in your structure. All right? So there's quite a bit to be said for structure. Structure, you have to look at the stanzas, you have to look at how many lines, you have to look at the length of the lines, and you have to look at are there rhyming lines and what is the rhyme scheme. And that all falls under the word structure. So far, when you get a poem, you need to have something about the poet. So when I look at your pages that you're analyzing now, that you've got in front of you, you've got your poem. Let's put all of this away because then it will stop confusing me. You've got your poem in the middle of your page, and then all around here, oh, you can't see this. Okay, here's your poem in the middle of the page. All around here on that double page, you will write poet, and you'll tell me all about the poet. You'll tell me type of poem, sonnet. You'll tell me structure, and you'll tell me something about the structure. And then, of course, there's lots more that you can tell me, and we'll get into that as we go through the year with the poetry. We'll obviously look at the very important part, which is the theme of the poem. We've already touched on the tone of hopelessness and sadness in the first poem. So there are lots of different aspects, but I need you to write down all this information all around the poem. All right, let's concentrate now on the characteristics of a sonnet, okay? And let's go back to this type of poem, And you'll see a sonnet. Can you see this? I hope so. A sonnet is a poem of 14 lines. There are many different kinds of sonnets. Shakespearean sonnets consist of 3 quatrains, in other words, 4 lines, 3 stanzas of 4 lines, and then a rhyming couplet, 2 lines at the end. Now, in our poem today, those winter Sundays, and I want you now to make a big bracket around the last 2 lines and to write the word couplet. C-O-U-P-L-E-T. And why we emphasize the couplet, if it's a rhyming couplet, then the last 2 words will rhyme. Rice, nice, cat, rat, okay? Why we concentrate so on the couplet, those last 2 lines, in a sonnet is because most times those last 2 lines, or often those last 2 lines, will have a contrasting idea, will be different to the rest of the poem. And we see that perfectly here in Haydn's Those Winter Sundays. Because you see, grade 10s, a sonnet normally looks at 2 different emotions. And normally those emotions are opposites, they contrast. And it's the final 2 lines that actually give you the message of the poem, all right? And often the sonnet is written in an exploration of love. It often covers the theme of love, whether it be love between 2 people, whether it be love for your parents, whether it be the love parents have for children, love for a best friend, all right? And most times a sonnet will explore the theme of love. And most times the couplet at the bottom, whether it be rhyming or not, will have a central message, all right? And those are the things that we need to know about the sonnet. Now, I want you to look at the actual poem, and I'm going to analyze it very briefly now for you. So, follow please. We hear him saying, Sundays too, with other words, even on a Sunday, even on the day of rest. My father. So again, we have a narrator, a narrative poem, as well as the sonnet, where the speaker tells the story. Sundays too, every day of the week. Notice how we spell that too, hey? T-O-O, too. Sundays too, my father got up early and put his clothes on in the blue, black cold. So it was freezing outside, and it was before the sun came up, hey? Then, with cracked hands that ached from labor in the weekday weather. So we know that his father was a manual laborer, somebody who worked hard outside. A physical job. He didn't wear gloves because his hands were exposed to the harsh cold weather. And he made, before the sun came up, he put on his clothes in the cold, in the dark, with his cracked hands on a Sunday. Instead of resting, his father would wake up early and make banked fires blaze. Now, what a banked fire is if you have a fireplace in your home, obviously you have the heat coming into the room, but just before you go to bed, often people would close that fireplace so as to keep the heat and to keep the coals alive. And it would often be closed up so that it would burn slower, but it would still keep burning. And then in the morning you would wake up and work with the fire, but because it hasn't died completely, it's a lot easier to get it going again, but it's still quite a hard job. So here his father would wake up early every morning, including Sundays, and instead of taking a break he would wake up and he would heat the house. So we know that it must have been very cold outside. And then line 5. In grade 10s, I cannot stress this line enough. No one ever thanked him. And there, that gives you the theme, an indication of what the poet is going to say to us. And here's my question. Right now, in our times of uncertainty, where we are all unsettled, how often are you thanking the people who love you? I'd wake, in stanza 2, line 6, I'd wake and hear the cold splintering and breaking. So the cold in the house would splinter and break as the warmth from the fireplace would move through. But I want you to look at those two words, splintering and breaking. Those are words of destruction. And I wonder why he would say that the hot heat from the fire, instead of it being soothing and comforting, the poet chooses to use two very harsh words, splintering and breaking. All right? Splintering, we know, is to break into very small pieces. So the speaker, the first person narrator, I would wake and hear the cold splintering and breaking. When the rooms were warm, he would call, and slowly I would rise and dress. Line 9, fearing the chronic angers of that house. Chronic means to carry on and on and on for a long time. And now we compare, or we are aware of those three harsh words, splintering, breaking, angers of that house. And the poet here tells us, just by using those three words, this was not a happy home. Yes, the father cared. Yes, the father made sure that there was warmth. Yes, the father took care of them. But there was an ongoing, a chronic anger in that house, splintering and breaking. We can't help thinking here that those are words of abuse. Stanza 3, line 10, speaking indifferently to him. Now, indifferent means when you really show no interest. Whether it be positive or negative interest, you really don't care. If you're indifferent to something, it doesn't affect you. So he would speak indifferently to his father. And again, let's bring it closer to home. Grade 10s, are you speaking indifferently to the people who love you? Are you giving monosyllabic answers? With other words, when your parents ask you something, are you saying, yeah, near? Are you not giving emotion, thought, care to your answers? Are you speaking indifferently to the people who love you? Speaking indifferently to him who had driven out the cold and polished my good shoes as well. Look at the love, look at the care that's gone in there. Even though there was splintering and breaking and anger in that house, there was a lot of care. And then the couplet, he says, what did I know? What did I know of love's austere and lonely offices? Obviously a rhetorical question, and we know that a rhetorical question is asked without expecting an answer. But we now have a total contrast from the first 12 lines in the couplet at the end. It obviously doesn't rhyme, know and offices. It's a couplet, it's not a rhyming couplet. What did I know? What did I know? He repeats that question. He emphasizes. He wants to stress that he did not know. What did he know? He knew nothing of love's austere and lonely offices. Austere being cold, severe, and offices things that are thought of as duties of and chores. You know, you would talk about an office bearer. Mr. Null is the principal of our school. That is his office. He's the office bearer of the school. So the position you carry. And he says, the poet asks, as a child, what did he know of love's coldness, and what did he know about the loneliness that his father had, and the position that his father carried? All right, so we're just going to look at that today, but I want you to concentrate more on the sonnet, on the structure. So let's look quickly at the questions that you're going to do for me. Name 2 things that the father in this poem did for his family. Quote, 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 quote. Are you doing quotation marks? Let me see your bunny ears. Quote, quote. Ha, good. Now I can see you, eh? Quote. Quote 2 words that tell the reader that the father worked hard. Then, question number 3. Look at the following characteristics of a sonnet. Decide how many of these characteristics this poem, Those Winter Sundays, demonstrates. Has it got 14 lines? Does it explore a theme of love? Is there a regular rhyme scheme? Is there rhythm? Does it explore 2 contrasting ideas or emotions? Has it got a volta, which is a point at which the argument or thought changes direction? The couplet, the last 2 lines, carries the central image of the poem. Just put a tick or rewrite this in your book and put a tick next to each one. Number 4. Do you think, grade 10s? So I need your personal opinion here. Do you think that life in the home was always easy and loving? Quote, quote, quote. 2 words from the stanza 3 to support your answer. And then, number 5, look at the last 2 lines of the poem. How do you think that the poet feels about the way he treated his father? Give a reason for your answer. How do you think? Again, so line 4 and 5 are your personal opinions, and they're worth 2 marks. So you can't give me 1 word there. You've got to give me a little bit more. Okay. Thank you, grade 10s. That is all I'm going to be covering on those winter Sundays. Again, like with the clothes, there's so much more to this poem. But for the sake of time and this video, that's all I'm going to cover for this poem, with this poem right now. I want you to do these answers for me, and then I want you please to have ready with you the next time we talk. I want you please to have poem 3 with you, as well as these pages. You know by now that I use them often, so have the type of poem and the sound devices with you again. And then I also need you please to have your green bird book, your textbook, and your Via Africa, the brown textbook. I need those 2 books with you, please, and your language book. Just have them on the side, that if I get to them and I talk about the work that I've already given you, that you've got it in front of you. I sincerely hope that you spent the first 3 weeks before these videos started doing the language that I gave you on the first Monday of lockdown. If you haven't done that work, phone a friend and get it and get going. Do that language work, and then answer poem 1 and 2's questions. So that's it, grade 10s. I trust and pray that you will be good and that you will not be indifferent to the people that love you. And I want you to remember your manners and to thank the people who care about you. Be considerate. Buster agrees with me. That was him whining and saying, please hurry up now. So I've got to finish. Grade 10s, good morning and thank you, everybody. The girls can go and the boys can follow. And although we won't meet tomorrow, I know we'll meet again. Don't know where, don't know when, but I know we'll meet again some sunny day. Thank you.